Don't worry.
I have spent half a year studying in Latvia in Sweden, but that hasn't been enough to get the Swedish pronunciation.
No, but I don't think we even should consider it because it's a Danish name, so don't
Oh,
worry.
thank you.
Right. So, Mats, probably you could tell a few words about what are you doing in Latvia, how long you have been there, and how you get there.
For sure. Thank you very much for the invitation. I arrived the first time back in 1998 to this wonderful country when the arrival hall in Riga airport was a tent. So a lot of things has happened, no doubt about that. And the reason why I was here, and still are, that I have been building up the bank's activities, SEB's activities in whole Eastern Europe. Started with the Baltics, and then I continued to be brave, so we entered to Russia, Poland and Ukraine. And I've also been living 5 years in Ukraine, and that's a fascinating country. A little bit more challenge compared to wonderful Latvia. And of course, before that, I have been a banker in all my life, but I assume why I'm sitting here is basically maybe more a link to my past when I was responsible for SEB in the southern part of Sweden. And there we have one wonderful university city called Lund that basically has been quite energetic in developing new companies, a new innovation system. And yeah, that's it.
So, and a few words about this IDEON project. Probably you could share this story of this industrial park, how it's going to start, and why at the time what was the reason for that.
For sure. I think that reason, if you listen to the story I'm going to tell, I think there's many things that are very much similar to the situation for the moment in Latvia. South part of Sweden during that time, now we are back in the beginning of the 80s, then you can say that the industrial structure totally changed. Because south part of Sweden were very much depending on shipyard industry, textile industry and rubber industry. All that industry basically just disappeared, not over the night, but in a couple of years, depending on huge competition from other countries, especially Asia and that part of the world. So we had to do something, and of course when you have this kind of, let's say, very much basic industry, you have to find out and think through how can we add on much more knowledge-based industry. And then we start in huge tempo, I must say, but anyway, to create a good environment together with the society. And by society I mean, for example, the municipality in Lund, and also what we call in Sweden län, is rajon in Latvian. And then also to try to find out how can we link the universities to this and also the industry. And that was the beginning of this IDEON. And the reason for that is of course obvious. If you have this kind of weeded out industry, we have an unemployment rate in South Sweden that is 4 times higher compared to Sweden overall. And then we need to find out what to do. And then we started this project by then adding on a lot of connection by professors, students in the university, gave them the opportunity to create new ideas and basically really supported it. And I can explain later on how we actually supported it.
Private initiative or public initiative?
It was a public initiative. You can say, to go back to that, to maybe comment on that, you can say that basically all innovation systems in Sweden are one way or another controlled by the state. Because the state is always long-term committed to different development. And so that was basically a combination of the municipality, the rayon, and then of course also the university. The toughest task was to change the mindset in the university, to be honest. Because a professor is always a professor, and a professor should just be able to do some nice lecture and to do some book writing, but to do things commercial is almost not the task for a professor. So how did we then basically achieve, and what was then the main changes? Well, you know, in Sweden, if I work in university, if I do a creative new thing, then I, as a private individual, owns that innovation. And by that, of course, you also have the initiative to earn money for the future. Then you can say, is that fair to the university? Yes and no. Because at the very end, of course, the society always gains if somebody starts to earn money, employ people, and by that building up new activities. Here in Latvia, as far as I understand, it's absolutely opposite. Either the state or the university own this innovation. And that, I think, is a very important trigger, for example, for Latvia to make sure that you find other way to really make sure that professors and students get this, let's say, opportunity to be wealthy for the future. Then also, for example, if you take a scientific part, it's quite many today in Sweden. Lund is now one of the biggest in Europe. That is, of course, from the very beginning, a cost for the society. But when you look into all those scientific programs and the way those companies employ new people, of course, immediately you will start to get money back to the tax system. In Sweden, for example, 60% of all employment are in private or small business. 80% of all new employment is done in startups. That is a very important trigger for the future. And once again, I mean, if you run business, then the employee starts to pay taxes, the taxes go back to the state or to the municipality.
And how is this IDEON process will start? Is the government make some kind of grant or get some kind of several millions for build the buildings, or how it started?
No, that is something also that we had discussed here for many years, not only in Latvia, but in many, let's say, new growing countries. The most important thing is not the buildings. Building is just something that you have to be inside. The most important thing is to get the brain capacity and really make sure that you have support and to understand how to run business. Because a professor has no idea how to make a market plan, how to approach a bank, how to go to audit, and one very important thing. The first question I always ask as a banker when people ask me what to do for the future, where is the market? Because many of those professors have a brilliant idea, but they don't think how to sell it. And all that kind of business support, you really need to have an incubator. And it started with IDEON. When you see it today, it's almost like a dream scenario, because, you know, when that started back in 1983, it was 4 wooden barracks as a gift from one big building company in Sweden, Skanska. You know, those wooden barracks were just basically giveaway. So that was the beginning, and what the discussion also was then in university was that when our professor starts to do an innovation, then we took out the professors in the afternoon, put him or her in these incubators, just to be a little bit more prudent in this, let's say, ethical standard between the university and the incubators. By that, you immediately create a very interesting environment, because we are sitting here, there may be 20 people are sitting over a cup of coffee in the evening, they have a lot of discussions, and by that you boost yourself and you get a little bit energy. And if you should link all these discussions to Latvia, I live here, I love this country, but I mean, there's still one thing that we need to understand. It's a very simple word called trust. There is still totally lack of trust in this system, and if you don't have trust in anyone, it's very complicated to really build up things from the very beginning.
So why do you think we lost the trust?
How to get it back?
I think that's very important how to get it back. And I mean, I should not evaluate the history, you know it much better than me. But I mean, I think it's very important, because, you know, if you don't have this trust, I mean, then suddenly one innovator should go to you and tell the idea, how can I trust you? Because maybe tomorrow you will steal the whole idea and make something else. So I think it's very important that we put that in place, because I think it's relevant.
It's a problem in society, in the mindset of society.
It's a mindset, yeah.
I can say I'm now working on a startup idea that has the scientific part has spinned off of Institute of Spectroscopy, and there I really see, well, my feeling is that we have a trust between players, or enough trust to move forward, but especially in the beginning, when you have the idea, when you are trying to make the right partnership, I don't see how it's possible to make a legal structure there.
No.
If you make a legal structure too soon, you're stiffening yourself. And if you don't have this trust element, you cannot make the combination.
That's true. I mean, I can also tell you, even if it sounds a little bit maybe too tough to this word trust, but I mean, even if you go back in Sweden, I met many innovators in the beginning of the 80s when they approached me in the bank. They maybe already have a ready contract what they want to sell, but they have been taken away, all the names, deleted that, because they don't even want to show me as a banker what they want to achieve for the future. So of course this is a very tricky question. But I mean, if you really want to create an innovative society, which we all want to do, then you have to have, as we have here in this group now, trust in discussions. We really have to believe that when I tell you things, it's between you and me, we create something good for the future. If not, it's very complicated even to sit in an incubator, because there you have coffee together, you have brilliant parties and things like that. But I really have to, once again, get this in order.
And a few practical questions about the structure of this idea of the scientific park. Who owns the land, who can buildings, and what are developers of this
You
project?
can also say, that's a good point, because you know, in the very beginning when this was created, then the society, in this case the municipality, clearly just over the night basically changed land that was orientated from the very beginning to properties, living houses and flats. Just over the night said this is a good land, very much concentrated close to the technical university, close to Lund University. So over the night it just changed that in the municipality. And by that you could say that was one of the biggest achievement from the municipality side. I mean, so if you then go to Riga, where did we find this place in Riga where we have a land close to the university? They will put this IDEON, as I call it, because then you immediately get the links to the universities and
better have supermarkets in this land.
Yeah, that's true. And the discussion that we have had here in Latvia for a long time was basically to put this IDEON on Turnkaller, if I not pronounce it correctly.
Turnikam.
Exactly. Because the idea was also there to establish a campus for the future. I don't know what we get now, but then you get the link together. Because it's very important that those incubators are as close as possible to the universities.
Right. And so, what is your comment about the existing Latvian ecosystem of government vision? How you see our government is working on some kind of development, such innovative ecosystem, and what are problems and you're just insider from not local.
Can't we go take some coffee?
No, I think let's do it.
To be serious, I mean, I think basically what I have been facing, not only me, many, is that the bureaucracy by taking a decision is so heavily. And I think even there we are back to this simple word trust, because nobody really does stick out the nose, because why should I do it? Because I don't maybe get more and more flavor in my garden for that. But we need somebody in this country that stand up and say, I am responsible for the innovation system. And I tried to find out now in 3 years' time who it is. Still nobody can answer that question. So everybody or nobody is responsible. And now maybe I sound a little bit too tough, but I mean that is the situation. If we can just find one person who is so committed to do it, then I think the other parts will fall quite easily. Because I mean, we all understand how to run an incubator. I think everybody today understands incubator is not a building. Incubator is more inside how you can train capacity, how you can support all those ideas in a good way. Then we also, of course, need to find out how do we help and support financing those startups. But I think we have reached pretty long level today, because now we have pre-seed money, we have seed money in place. Now we just have to find out that the system works in a smooth way. And saying that, well, I think we also have to do in that way. If you have one who is responsible, then we also need to find one organization that takes that responsibility in Latvia. Today it's so fragmented in so many different levels in
the Ministry of Innovations.
Yeah, I propose basically Ministry of Corporate, because that we have also in many other countries. But we need to streamline that. We need to find somebody who stands up and says, I am responsible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any questions from colleagues in the audience also related to the donation system?
I think the responsibility should take, I don't know whether they take, but the Ministry of Economics and in Ministry of Interior. That's my guess would be. But because your question is like, who's responsible for the light switch? And it's like the obvious question, but it's
No,
good
but
one.
I understand what you're saying.
Everyone.
But my answer is pretty clear. As soon as you have one or more person responsible, nothing happens. You need to find one person. And that might very much be the Ministry of Economy or the Ministry of Education, but just decide who is going to be responsible.
Yeah, currently I think there is some funding under Ministry of Economy.
Yes.
There is science and research funding under Ministry of Education.
Normally it's economy, it's Ministry of Economy.
Yeah.
Okay. And
National development plan.
yeah.
Just somewhere in the middle.
And I wouldn't forget also the funding that's available for procurement in Ministry of Defense. They are investing, they're planning to invest, and it's also money that could be partly channeled.
Yeah, and then at the very end also Minister of Finance also has opinion about this funding issue. I mean, there are so many people that was. So for me, I think you say that the government realized, which I think they do, that Latvia needs to do something about the innovation system for the future. Fine, but then just make one person responsible for that and give real responsibility.
And tools.
That's
switches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just a few words about green incubator, probably you can how going, how long it takes time to launch, and what is current stage.
The green incubator is basically, in one way or another, one reply also on this IDEON project. And maybe I should shortly touch that too, because this project started when Robert Killis was advisor to the former president. And then we were sitting down together and say, what can we do for the innovation system in Latvia? And then we traveled over to Lund, so everybody have to understand what has happened there. And then, as you know, Robert changed his position, and then of course he was stuck in he was stuck in many other issues. And then suddenly we found out that if we can create this green incubator, and behind the green incubator you find Latvia University, you find Riga Technical University, and you find also some organization from Norway. And we also have quite close cooperation with the Riga municipality. So that you can say is what you want to achieve related to IDEON, to establish the green incubator, and by that also build up activities from the very beginning more concentrated to the so-called green sector, but green can suddenly be a little bit more brown, so there I think there will be a lot of opportunities. So that is the first time, as far as I know, those two universities are sitting together at the same table and do decisions for the future. For the moment, we are slightly stuck in the bureaucracy, so hopefully we'll get some reply before the year end from now some Norwegian institutes sitting in Brussels. But people are in place, and we have management in place, and we also have a queue of potential incubator corporate that wants to be part of this green incubator in Pulka. So that is the way it's going. But even then, I must say, part of this process, you get a little bit astonished sometimes when you understand that you believe that everything is ready. You say, fine, gute lage Paldeas. Then suddenly realize after 2 months nothing is ready. Then you have to restart a lot of documentation, you have to approach things that you should never even thought about. So, I mean, lesson to learn, I mean, when we have fulfilled it, I have said to my closest people in this project, we should sit down when we are ready and write down all those issues, not to complain, but to support the future system, how to do it. But hopefully, to answer your question, we are up and running here, hopefully after Christmas.
So you will replace the Polka Street.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the defragmentation of Riga technology ecosystem? Because there's one startup which is tech hub, which is located in the center of the Riga. The startup Latvia will be in Sweden. Universities have different campuses all around Riga, and how do you feel about that? Do you see some kind of need for centralization?
No, my feeling is pretty clear. I mean, I think in the dream world it should be extremely good if it could be located with one incubator organization in one place in Riga. Because, I mean, we are so fragmented. I mean, Riga is a fantastic city, but it's not New York, it's not London, it's quite small city. So we need to find out how we really can concentrate resources. It's best for all of us. So can we find that place, and we can also maybe then convince Riga municipality then to make sure that this land can be used as an incubator, hopefully close to university. That should be the place.
Just one comment. I just made a little search in Google, and I found out there's innovation.lv portal, Latvia. There is innovation policy, and there is structures and everything about what's about innovation in Latvia. And it's not the best website, but for example, the news there is from this year September something like about chemistry in many cities of Latvia. So something is happening in that.
Sure, I'm not saying that. There's a lot of things happen, but it must go quicker.
Yeah.
I would add to that that things are happening, and I was it beginning of this year, I was moderating a couple of days event about startups and business incubation in Latvia, and through that I kind of, in the process, the discussion process was going together with people from universities, and the trick was that when you analyze the situation, do you have that? Yes, we have that. Do you have that kind of institution? Yes, we have that. Do you have that? Yes, we have that. What are we missing? Well, theoretically, we're not missing anything. Everyone agrees that, well, it's not working. And that's...
Maybe I can ask a question that brings up back to your, you said about the ownership. It has to be somebody who owns the idea, and I think it boils down to that at the highest political level there is no interest whatsoever in innovation-based development. We have been on a track of being, a banking and a transit and logistics country. So hopefully the crisis hit us hard enough in our nose, and we maybe already think. And any suggestions for us? How can we sort of get there? Closer to that ownership? We have elections coming after all.
I think less than a year now.
Right.
But I mean, to adding on to that, I think, yes, many of those things already exist. Then we have to find out who can take the responsibility for all those two things, and that's something that we need to sort out. Then we have a trust element, but there's one other issue more, and that is that it's so hard to convince people that we must have a long-term view. And that is, I mean, I can understand it, because this society has changed so dramatically during 20 years. So I mean, this has been taken 35 years to create it. And when I said to people, you can sit down and wait, maybe in 15 years we have this in place. And then it's, of course, very complicated for people here to understand 15 years, ooh la la, it's so far away in the future. And that is also a little bit a mental problem.
About that previous comment that it's not working. So I just thought, for me, what's the problem? There is several tools or institutions or whatever. For me, that would be the problem. Not that they are not working, but I don't know how to use them. When I am thinking about Tech Hub or some of incubators, then I just realized that I don't need anything of this, or I will need this later a little bit. So the problem is not like in their institutions, it's in me, myself, and whether if I'm doing, then I create something, and if maybe there is institution that could speed up me, but I don't know how to use it.
No, and that's my point what I try to say too, because if you have someone who is responsible, then under that of course you need to find out an organization that can take care exactly what you're saying. And that organization is so complicated today to reach in Latvia because it's so weaved out in many different areas. I mean, you have that for Military Agency, you have LEIA, you have a lot of institutions. We need to find one point entry so people really understand where to go and they can then help you in the whole chain.
May I ask a question? Because you mentioned that, regarding green incubators, that you have cooperation with Riga Technical University, and as I know, they already had initiatives regarding incubation and some technical facilities. I don't know, I'm not sure what they did, but I know that they had people there in place. What's happening now is those facilities?
To be honest, I don't know.
Because it's just a matter of several years ago that they did, let's say, some work on establishing some infrastructure.
I think it's very, very correct, but to be honest, I don't know. But I mean, that is, I think, if I may, a little bit straightforward again. That's just one example that you start something, but you don't really think through what is the whole chain of value. Because you have to understand from the very beginning what you really want to achieve. And just to build a house with some fancy computers, then nothing happens after 6 months, for example. I mean, you have to be so sure that you understand what you want to achieve, who is the driver, who takes that responsibility.
Because I suppose it should be, let's say, some other motivation for, let's say, technical university just to do that, but it's not, let's say, there's no, let's say, market for that. It could be a situation.
No,
That's
but
just the idea on top of, let's say, university, just still to do and to create some place.
I understand, but I mean, for me, sitting here and try to deal with this for 3 years without any salary, the only motivation is to create a new Latvia. That's the only motivation. And if you find enough people in this country that also want to build a new Latvia, then we do it.
So we need to start from our society mindset first, in order to influence political will, and political will turn us in direction to innovation technology.
Create political will, not to influence.
You know, exactly.
Yeah, because there's a very, very common saying that there's no political will to change something, because politicians is not asked from society to do something. So why take risky decision to state that Latvia will be high-tech country, for example, if we were an ordinary country with ordinary business like consuming of technologies which is created outside of this country.
And stories, sex stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, you can laugh about this related to shopping, but I have sometimes done some very philosophic thought about that, and now I might be totally out of the blue, but anyway, if you go back to Latvia's history before the Second World War, then during 20 years Latvia was building up a society with the same GDP level as Denmark, in a very good way. I mean, you have high-tech products, you have this mini-car, you have everything in place. Then, as we all know, something happens. Then we were in some long period with some other society. Then suddenly, in 1991, you open up your eyes and then everybody starts to look. No, is that the way a society should look? You need to have 3 cars, 5 houses, and you need to have the latest suit. What I'm trying to say is that if Latvia should continue to develop from 1940, and let's say in a normal system, then you should reach the same level as Sweden, Norway and Denmark are today. But then you have this brutal change in society. And then I think everybody wants to have consumption. You want to have cars, you want to have whatever. And did not spend any time for the next step in the society about innovation. So I think it's very logical to understand.
But it's as you said previously. You need to get enough people that want to make a new country. And
It's true. It's true.
Well, and the new generation is okay. I think we're we're finishing our today's discussion. Thanks very
you
much,
much.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.